will. So, so as Corey said, this is this is something that that I put together. So I started with NICE inContact as a technical account manager about 6 years ago, and it was one of the first things that I realized was I would spend crazy amounts of time just trying to figure out a proper report for my customers to use, or if they were asking for a report that had specific fields in it for that they wanted metrics on. It was just, one question could blow my entire day. And so I set out to try to do something. So on my evenings and weekends, I started gathering an example of every one of the reports that was available in the various reporting. Anyway, I started with making a copy of every report and then reading all of the fields and then trying to figure out the proper definitions. Some of the definitions were there, but I rewrote most of these to get rid of any jargon or acronyms or things like that, so that mere mortals could figure out reporting. So this has been around for about 5 years or so. It took me about 6 months or so to throw it together, and most of that was just cleaning up the data. So without any further, I'll kind of jump into it. At present, there are 231 reports and APIs that make up the data source, and I add to this continuously. In fact, yesterday I was working on adding another report, so I'm continuously updating the report selector to keep it as fresh as possible. So you'll see this number will continue to grow over time. And so you can get to the report information several different ways. The fastest and easiest way, if you're looking for a particular report, the list of all the reports are in this first drop down box here, and if we click on a report here, we get that specific report, and then on the right hand side the panel changes and gives us all the information about it. And these are the things that were most prevalent in terms of what people wanted to know: where to find the report, the type of report, a lot of times the refresh rate of the report, whether the report is available in User Hub, or if it's in the older central version, or if it's an API, brief description, and then the fields that make up that report and the definitions behind those fields. Now, one of the first things that I want to draw your attention to is when there's a field name. Sometimes you'll see instances like this where there are several field names and they're held together by the vertical pipe sign. And what that indicates, for example, there's one there, and here's another one here, and here's another one here. And what that indicates is that as I read every one of these reports and compared the data that was in every one of these reports, I found that we were not always good at going back and using and reusing field names in future reports that matched existing reports that we already had in the stable. And so, somebody came along and they came up with the name agent, and then somebody created another report. Instead of calling it agent, they called it agent name, and then another one came along and called it original agent, and you get the idea. And I made a decision that instead of separating all of those out and making people even more confused, I would just concatenate those names together under one definition. And so if you see a report and it says, original agent, well, that you can rest assured that that's going to be the agent name or the agent, and that's what that stands for. And similarly, like here, media and media type, that might be familiar to you, but maybe the term channel name is not. And that's one of those things where, again, we didn't go back and look at what existed, and it ended up with several different names. So I just wanted to draw that to your attention, because that's kind of the way I constructed the data source, so as not to confuse people. Some of the definitions that you'll see in here have additional hyperlinks, like this one here. So if I couldn't fit all the information in there, or if it was too complex, or if it was needed to be drawn out more, I added hyperlinks to those where you can find more additional information. Sometimes they're simple tables. I'll get another example here, but yeah, so sometimes you'll see additional hyperlinks within the definitions themselves to more information. Let me see, where's contact history? Just give you an example here. This has a lot. Yeah, like this one here. Yeah, so there are more of these. You'll find these from time to time in there. So for starters, you can if you know the name of a report or an API, you can look it up just by dropping down here. If you're not sure, if you want to filter out the list, so this will automatically filter. So if you notice, we're starting with 231. If I just want to see my APIs, it filters out everything but the APIs, and then you have the 44 reporting related APIs. And let me just emphasize that there are a bunch of customer facing APIs that we have, but these 44 are specifically used a lot in reporting and dashboards, and so they have a special place of honor in the report selector program here, and that's what these are. And it's a similar sort of thing. Any of these APIs, just like the reports, have the definitions, the refresh rate, where to find it, where in the API set to find it, the definitions, and all of that good stuff. This is a huge one, as you can see, has 81 different fields. All right, so you can filter by the type, and you can actually choose you can choose more than one choice here. So if I wanted data download and I also wanted QM reports or something, you can choose multiples from this dropdown. This dropdown, you can't choose multiples for obvious reasons. This one you can choose multiples from. All right. And let's see here. Here's another drop down that you can choose from. So we have APIs. We have all the reports that are available in the user hub, which is the newer, the more recent platform. And the slightly older central has a different number. There's 158 in there, 183 in here. And that's because the central is our older legacy system, and it's in time it'll go away, and some of the newer reports and excuse me, some of the newer reports and the technology we use to create those newer reports only works in the newer user hub environment. That's why there's more in there. So that's another way of filtering your reports and APIs. Okay. So I'll take a quick pause there. Any questions at this point? All right. Okay. So the other nice utility of the report selector is to be able to find existing tools that have fields that you might be interested in getting a report on, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, or you don't have to create a custom report. And to do that, these two drop downs work together. So this one here, as the name implies, top 20 fields, shows the top 20 reporting fields that end up in a lot of different reports. And so if I wanted to find a report, let's say I was looking for a report that had the agent name, Okay. Notice my 200 reports now filtered down to 68. So these 68 contain the agent name. And let's say I wanted the agent ID. And you notice 68 now filtered to 38. So there are 38 reports and APIs that contain both the agent name and the agent ID, and so on. Contact ID. So now I chose contact ID and I filtered it down to 17. So every time you do a filtering for a particular field, it narrows down the universe of reports and APIs that we have to just the specific ones that contain those fields. And when you get to a point where there is no report, and I'll just keep randomly adding things here, see if I can make it happen. Get smaller and smaller and smaller. Let's see. There we go. So if you put together a combination that we have no report for, then you'll just get this no data message saying that we don't have anything that fits that criteria. And that's kind of a quick way of finding reports. Of course, you'll probably look for other metrics that are not necessarily in the top 20 here. And to do that, you can also pull metrics from this, where it has all the fields, all the metrics here, and you can scroll down this list. Let me find something here like that. Okay, so you can mix and match fields from the top 20 and the all fields, and you can use that as a way of narrowing down the list of reports that are available that contain those metrics. Okay, so that's how these two work together, or separately. You can do it or separately to see that. Let's see what else we got here. And of course, there is a text box search. So if I am looking for something related to SLA, maybe I'm looking for some sort of a definition of what does SLA mean to NICE with respect to reporting. You can just type in a phrase or a word in here, and what you'll get is a list of all of the reports and APIs that have something to do with SLA. And if you do a search on it and find, you'll find it down here somewhere. Okay, and then you can find a definition for that SLA, for example, in this case. So I use it quite a bit like a dictionary. So it's kind of like a dictionary in that respect. You can just type something in, and excuse me, you can just type something into that that word phrase search box, and then grab, it doesn't matter, grab any of the reports that come back on the left-hand side, and you'll find that word or that phrase in one of the reports, and you can find the definition of what that stands for. All right, so that's another way that it can be used, another utility for doing it. One of the things I wanted to show, and this is mostly for Corey, if you're working with customers and they ask about, do we have any reports that have the agent ID and the contact ID, and you use this and you say, oh yeah, I've got these guys here, you can just copy this filtered URL from this 3 dots here, and you can just email them that URL like so, and it will bring back for them the exact same thing that you had. It's already pre-filtered with the 29 results. So just kind of a FYI that it's a little utility that's built into it that you can use.
Oh, that's great. That's amazing.
Yeah. So you don't have to copy and paste or anything like that. You can just send them the URL and use that. So, all right. Let's see. So the other utilities are found in this bunch of brightly colored, my little Google boxes. They're kind of like bright primary colors, my elementary colors here. And these are things that have been built out over time that people have asked for, and I try to oblige as much as possible for the request. So probably one of the most important things, or one of the most useful things, especially for folks that are new to the NICE CXone environment, is the inbound call flow diagram. And this is, as one customer called it, he said it looks like a plumbing diagram. And that's kind of what it looks like. It's like, it does kind of look like a plumbing diagram of some sort. And it reads from left to right, and it sort of gives the lifespan of a inbound call and what is taking place. So inbound call, or excuse me, an incoming call, I got the phrase wrong. The incoming call hits our platform, it increments the incoming count. If it stays alive for 2 seconds, in other words, it wasn't a wrong number, then it becomes an inbound call, and it increments the inbound call count. And then the rest of it you can kind of read. There's a pre-queue time. If the call is dropped during that period, it's going to increment the pre-queue abandon counter, and then it goes into the queued state, and it increments the queued counter. So all of these, what I tried to do is I tried to map all of the phrases that we use in the reporting with this diagram, so that the vocabulary you see in reports should match the vocabulary that you see in this diagram. And it looks a little messy, but if you look at it for a little while, it begins to make sense. So the call just kind of propagates from left to right. It's in queue. There's in queue time. And then it gets at this gray spot, it gets routed, which usually there's a tiny fraction of a second, or maybe a second or two, between the routing time and it getting picked up, by an agent. Along the way, it could be short abandon, it could be long abandon, depending on whether you're using the short abandon option. And that's what these little notes are here on the bottom about short abandoned options. And let's see what else we got here. There's self-service. So if there's self-service is over here while you're in waiting when you come inbound. But if you're in queue, you could, if you have the option in your IVR to go to do a callback, then it goes through this route, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the things that are in here, and I tried to spell out as much as possible. And then a lot of times when we talk about the amount of time that things are taking place, that's what these tan beige bars are. Tell you how long, what does IVR time, what does that take into account? Well, it takes all this into account. Speed of answer takes this into account. Total contact time takes all of this into account. Talk time, ACD handle, all of these little time arrows give you an idea of what they represent. And they can also, they relate to the ones above them. So for example, talk time is actually the accumulation of active talk time plus hold time plus conference time, and stuff like that. So that's what those are. So that's one of the utilities that's built into the report selector. And since we're talking about timing, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to click on something that's related to that, which are the timing trees. I'll let that load. So this is more of another summary table that I put together that shows the relationship of a bunch of the timing metrics that are in the CXone reporting system. And they're pretty self-explanatory, like handle time is equal to agent time, which is equal to taking the active talk time plus hold time plus conference time plus ACW time, and so on and so forth. So you can see, and there's different relationships like this ACD time is this plus this, or you can also look at it as this plus this plus this plus this. So the color coding sort of follows like a little blocks that are kind of put together. So anyway, this is the different relationships of the different timings that we use in reporting. That's another utility that's built in there. Recently added about 6 months ago was an outbound call flow, similar to the inbound call flow for those that do outbound calling, especially if it's automated, outbound calling. So it's a similar sort of flow diagram, beginning from the preview time and ending with the call disposition. So that's another tool that's in there. What else I got? Comparing reports. This is another thing that I have used many times in helping folks understand the differences in the reports and see if I don't know if I can enlarge this or not. Can I enlarge this? Yeah, there we go. And the differences in the reports. So the type of report is along the left-hand side, and then some characteristics of those reports are along the top. Like how can they be filtered? Are the reports executable from an API call? Because some of our reports, you can execute them from an API call. So if you have a very sophisticated IT department and you want to set that up, you can have APIs call data download reports, custom reports, things like that. How the refresh rates are kind of all summarized here. Our data download reports are pretty quick, anywhere from 10 seconds to six minutes. The custom reports that you make in the reporting section, the intradays are refreshed every hour, and the detailed and the summary are refreshed every 6 hours, and so on. You can see. So this is just kind of a matrix that compares all the different features. How long are the reports, available to? How long are they stored? Can you schedule them? And individual fields and things that you can get from them. So that's another little tool, another little cheat sheet, if you will, that's built into the report selector. And I think let's see here. There's a green button here for many of the reports. So if you're looking at a report and it has a link back to the help site, then a green button will pop up automatically to show you that you can get even more information about it. Notice that green button just disappeared with the APIs because there's not really an equivalent help site for the APIs that is that comprehensive in terms of giving you the information about the APIs. So here it is again for a standard report, and with APIs it disappears. But fear not, because I have another button that sort of takes the place of that, and it's the reporting API documentation button here. And so I kind of took all of that same information that is in the report selector and I put it into a document that is downloadable then from the report selector itself. So here is a list of all of those report related APIs. And when you scroll down to them, and this is huge now because I made it huge. Let's shrink that back up a bit. When you scroll down to them, you get a good summary of any particular API, a description, where to find it, the family name, any required parameters are here in red, any optional parameters are here, the type of API it is. And then the rest of it follows similar to the report selector, the name of the field, and then a thorough as I could write it, description of the fields that are in that. And once again, I took the liberty of writing all of these and trying to clean them up and make them as uniform as possible so that they made sense for us mere mortals to understand, because I'm not a programmer. So that's built into the toolbox here. These are my tools in the toolbox. And lastly, there's a link here to a demo that I recorded a long time ago, which is probably long since out of date. And if this is a good recording, maybe I'll replace it with this one because it needs updating desperately. So anyway, I think that kind of covers all the information that is embedded in the report selector. And as I said, I'm always updating. And if you have any questions or suggestions, or find any mistakes, because that happens quite a bit too, feel free to let Corey know, and I will hastily get them fixed as quickly as possible. And if there are any ideas, I would love to hear them. So, okay. Any questions?
This was fantastic.
Turn it back over to you then, and I'll stop sharing.
Much appreciated.